to Coronavirus The Rundown. I'm Chris Stewart. The Senate may expand a relief program for small business when it convenes next week. With the extension comes a call for unprecedented transparency. Alicia Nieves asked an advocate why that is important.
Roughly half of the $2 trillion stimulus package passed by Congress in the CARES Act has gone to bailing out small businesses and major industries. Most of that money has been tied to some accountability, telling companies what they can and cannot spend the money on. But experts say transparency for taxpayers is still an issue.
The biggest bailout in U.S. history deserves the most transparency in U.S. history.
R.J. Cross is with the U.S. Public Interest Research Group. It's a watchdog agency calling for the Federal Reserve to have public disclosure online and in real time of the names of every corporation getting aid and how much these corporations are getting, something the Fed is currently not required to do.
The Federal Reserve has long been hesitant to disclose the names and specific identities of what companies are receiving assistance. And maybe that's been okay in the past, but right now it's definitely not going to be enough.
The call for increased transparency stems from an increased risk the Fed is taking on.
The Federal Reserve is doing things that it's never had to do before, like lending to small and mid-sized businesses and buying riskier classes of corporate debt. This stuff it didn't even do in 2008. It's a risky move.
The debt the Fed is assuming in this bailout has a higher risk of default, a higher chance, essentially, that it's not going to get back the money it's lending.
If we end up having made a mistake by allowing all of this money to go to corporations who might not pay back those loans, taxpayers could be held accountable and on the hook for hundreds of billions of dollars.
And that's the purpose, the crux of why we're doing this story, because the reality is people are so focused on their own situation right now, and they're thinking about the recovery, hoping it comes soon. But what happens when we have a recovery and then, oh, wait, you're going to get slammed with taxes now because we have to pay back now all this money that was lent out, and potentially money that was lent out that can never be paid back.
We need to help people, not put them on the hook for bailouts that hopefully work.
There is no guarantee transparency will reduce the risk in this bailout, but it will allow anyone this time around to know what is happening with taxpayer dollars in real time. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
Alicia, thank you. And glitches are preventing millions of Americans from getting their stimulus money. The Treasury says millions who filed their taxes with services like H&R Block or TurboTax don't have their direct deposit information on file, even if they got their tax refunds direct deposited in the past. Now, you can check your status on the IRS Get My Payment tool. There have been other issues reported as well, including people getting the wrong amounts and payments going into the wrong accounts. And you might be wondering if you should spend or save your stimulus money. Lindsay Boach asked an expert.
By now, you may be one of the more than 80 million Americans who has a little extra cash in your bank account. But before you spend it all in one place or spend it at all, we're asking if spending it is even wise.
For the people for whom it's an uncertain question as to where the dollars are going to come for food next week, then this is a matter more of survival as opposed to spending. And they need to use these dollars to make up for what they normally would have had.
Professor of Finance Matt Klaus says the first thing you need to do is look at your budget and the things that you normally spend money on in a month.
And put them into an order of what are the things that have to be paid, what are the things that I might be able to talk to the creditors and see if I can get some extensions and things like rent, maybe put it off for a month or two, or car loans.
If you're in a position to spend some of that money, Klaus suggests looking at local businesses.
It would be nice to help the local businesses, especially the smaller businesses, if we can, to keep them alive. They're the businesses that have less reserves, less capability to exist a long time in a situation like this.
But his best advice is to leave it in the bank, in your savings account.
It's not going to earn them a lot of interest, but now is not the time to be looking for investments that are earning a rate of return and taking risk.
Because he says nobody knows when we'll come out of this and if jobs will come back quickly. I'm Lindsay Boach reporting.
Lindsay, thank you. The online bank Current says its data is showing that Americans are spending their checks on basic needs like food, groceries, and gas, and not splurging on big-ticket items. New protests against stay-at-home orders are planned for the weekend. Protesters were out this week in Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Kentucky, expressing concern about the economic consequences of the guidelines. This week, President Trump released new plans for opening up America again. It starts with a soft reopening of certain places. The guidelines suggest states meet 3 requirements before starting phase 1. 2 weeks of decreased cases, normal patient and supply levels at hospitals, and having safe and efficient screening sites. People and organizations are doing what they can to get on track towards some sense of normalcy. Our partners at Newsy show us a business leader's path forward.
Hey, I'm Bob Baga. I work for a company called BizX. I'm the president and co-founder. We are a network of businesses that trade with one another without spending any cash, so it's a modern-day digital barter exchange. When this first hit, we're all gripped with fear up front, and it's very sad to see. What I also do see is I see a lot of innovation happening and people working virtually and coming up with new ideas. So the path forward, moving forward, is 3 key points. Number 1 is put your own oxygen mask on and to ensure the viability of your business. Do what you need to do to survive. Number 2, it's to innovate today. What can you do to innovate your business to be able to deliver or provide a good and service in a virtual way or a different way to your customers? And number 3, start planning and preparing for the rebound now, because when business opens up, there's going to be pent-up demand. The advice I'd give to others in this situation are stop, breathe, take some time, clear your head. And here's the one big thing I would take away. You're not in this alone. Every single company, every single person in every corner of this earth has been impacted. And don't take this personally. You didn't fail. The one thing I'm going to do when this is all over is gather with my closest friends and raise a glass with them to tell them how much I appreciate and love them.
Now, if you think you have to be stuck at home right now, think again. You can actually travel the world. Obviously, we're talking virtually, but there are a lot of really cool experiences online. You can see the famous tulips of the Netherlands online. The Keukenhof flower exhibit has videos that allows you to virtually get close to these famous flowers. A gardener will guide you through, and you can find the virtual tour on a website right here that you see on your screen. And now you don't even need to leave your couch to take a trip to Paris. You can see different exhibits at the Louvre by visiting louvre.fr/en. You see that on your screen right there as well. And you can also stop at the Vatican. This is a view inside the Sistine Chapel. This and other tours are available on the Vatican's website. Now, the stress of a pandemic, working from home, and then on top of that, you add being a parent. Well, we will take you to a class that is teaching parents how to turn the crisis into an opportunity. And the new statement from the FDA about wiping down food. Next.
Sticking together while staying apart.
So many people are donating needed items during this pandemic. You have probably seen crowdfunding campaigns online for things like PPE supplies, masks, even meals for first responders and healthcare workers. Now a family is trying to raise money for phone chargers. See, their father went to the ICU with coronavirus. He had been in the hospital for 48 hours when his cell phone died. Nurses then called the family to tell them they needed to say goodbye, but that wasn't possible since he didn't have a charger. And that's when a nurse brought him an extra one and connected him with his family.
Every time we called and spoke to him, even in his unconscious state, the nurse would tell us how his heart rate would pick up a little bit, or he would move slightly.
Now, thankfully, he is improving today, so the Hefflers are raising money to buy phone chargers to send to hospitals around the country, since patients often don't have access to a charger or landline phone in makeshift rooms.
This is something literally everybody can do. And we even say in our GoFundMe campaign, you don't have, don't send us the money. If every American literally just bought one phone charger and sent it to the hospital, this problem would be solved overnight.
Now, some of their focus is on hospitals in hard-hit areas. We're talking New York and New Orleans. They are raising money with a GoFundMe. They also encourage people to send chargers to hospitals in their area if they can. Now, parents are certainly busy right now between dealing with coronavirus, working from home, and keeping the kids on track. It can be a lot, to say the least. Rob Cardwell shows us a woman helping others juggle it all.
It's fun.
It's just another day at the Keeley household. Hannah is a mom of 7, and at her online academy, Mom Mastery University, she provides help for exhausted mothers, many of whom are finding themselves taking on the dual role of teacher these days. Her first bit of advice: relax.
What's most important as far as educating your children is they're watching you. Like, they're watching how you are responding to chaos, to crisis, to unprecedented times.
Hannah believes this is an opportunity you can take advantage of as a parent.
They're going to see you go into this time with a certainty and a confidence that they can start to adopt in their own lives.
One way to do that is to find things you all like to do, then dive right in.
We're doing painting, we're doing more writing. We're being really creative with how we're doing things.
Educational games are great for learning and having fun. Planting gardens teaches about nature and can be calming for parents and kids.
The great thing is that education kind of just slips in the back door when you're doing those things you're passionate about. Right. So what a great time for you to discover what your kids are passionate about.
Hannah also says whether it's yoga, meditation, or just alone time, find time to do it. Staying mentally healthy will go a long way for your kids.
I am the greatest woman alive! Are we going to think, oh my gosh, that was so chaotic, that was such a crisis, oh my gosh, it freaked me out? Or are we going to look back and say, wow, what a great time that we could slow down, center ourselves, and spend some time with our families?
Now, the CDC says you don't have to wipe down your groceries, including food packaging. Now, that really could just give you some peace of mind this weekend if you head to the grocery store. The FDA says there is no evidence coronavirus spreads through food or food packaging. It says you can wipe everything down if it makes you feel better. Just make sure you let it air dry. Well, more than half of the people in major industries can't afford to take a sick day. University of California researchers found 55% of workers at the biggest grocery, retail, and food service companies had no access to paid sick leave. The study found just 8% of people could afford to take a week off without pay. Researchers did the study before coronavirus. They say the results show how a lack of consistent sick pay options can put health at risk of the public. Now, truck drivers are busier than ever, making sure products get to stores even amid a driver shortage. Amanda Brandes is showing us what is stopping new drivers and how it could affect everyone.
The job description hasn't changed.
7 days a week. I don't stop.
Get your cargo from point A to point B.
This last trip I did 4,600 miles there and back.
But truck drivers are delivering more than just goods. They're delivering a sense of relief to a nation on edge.
The load I did last week, I went into Washington, and I picked up 44,000 pounds of apples. And I took them to Feed America right here in San Diego.
Everything people have come by truck. So I got to work. And I'm proud to work to feed my fellow Americans.
Vietnam veteran Christopher Tyler has been driving for 42 years. Before the pandemic, he was hauling dirt, which is now in low demand.
When people need food all over the country to eat, and I can drive and take them food, no, I can't go on unemployment. I'd rather work and take people's food.
Most Americans don't think too much about truck drivers until times of crisis, and these men and women are doing just heroic work each and every day.
Don LaFave advocates on behalf of commercial truck driving schools. With state driver's license agencies closed in more than 20 states, truck driving students are stuck in a holding pattern.
We can train people, but then we couldn't get them their license. That's very problematic because you need a commercial learner's permit to even operate on public roads.
And the industry was already short tens of thousands of drivers before the pandemic.
Truck drivers or bus drivers aren't produced overnight. It does take a number of weeks or even months to get them trained.
At United Truck Driving School in San Diego, 5 students got their commercial learner's permits one day before DMVs in the state closed their doors.
Working on skills, how to parallel park, how to offset park.
Because Arizona offers third-party testing, the school will bus the students over state lines so they can get their commercial driver's licenses.
This roadblock of no DMV testing, it hits them personally, and we want to do everything we can to get these people out on the road, get them a good paying job, support their family.
The industry is urging governors to allow exceptions for these drivers to protect the nation's supply chain, because if they don't,
no new drivers in those states.
That could lead to shipping delays or higher prices in goods.
I'm going to keep working until it's over with. The American people couldn't know I got their back.
But far more help is needed as the country begins to climb out of this recession and into the future. In San Diego, I'm Amanda Brandeis reporting.
Amanda, thank you. And FEMA is spending more than $1 billion to make field hospitals. We talked to the agency about why those hospitals are important to have. Next.
CERF.org.
Welcome back. FEMA is working with the Army Corps of Engineers to build massive makeshift hospitals. It's at a cost of more than $1 billion. Usher Qureshi spoke with the FEMA administrator about this mission.
Within a matter of days, Chicago's McCormick Place converted from the nation's largest convention center to the nation's largest field hospital.
We look at what the demand signal may be in these locations, what the bed capacity is going to be, what the potential ICU capacity is going to be.
This alternative care facility will be ready to accept more than 2,200 coronavirus patients this week and eventually hold up to 3,000 patient beds. The National Guard helped bring in about 500 negative pressure tents from Oregon. FEMA has funded some 32 missions in 25 states and one tribal nation for the Army Corps of Engineers to design and build out alternative care sites. The total cost, $1.6 billion.
This is an unprecedented situation for the entire nation and for the world, for that matter.
Preparations and response for a surge of patients that in a worst-case scenario could overwhelm hospitals and emergency rooms.
We need to have a place for subacute patients, patients who are less ill, to be able to receive treatment while the hospitals turn more of their beds into ICU beds.
While most of these facilities will help with non-COVID-19 overflow, McCormick is being prepped to handle coronavirus patients with mild symptoms exclusively.
We're talking hospitals, the state emergency management, public health departments are talking to the hospitals daily to assess their capacity, their census, and their potential needs.
It's a national plan that officials say is federally supported, state managed, and locally executed, something on a scale never seen before.
This is the whole of America response, and together we as a nation, in my honest opinion, as a nation, we are the strongest, and that's how we'll get through this trying situation.
Reporting from Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi.
Usher, thank you. And a woman is making weighted teddy bears to help people cope with coronavirus. The reason she's been helping people with these bears for more than 20 years.
Donation or volunteer today.
Welcome back. We end the rundown each day with stories that remind us of the good that is happening around us. And today, it's the nonprofit from San Diego using teddy bears to help people. They're weighted, designed to be soothing. Marcella Johnson has been making these teddy bears for about 21 years. It was since her infant son died. Now, she says the weight helped her get through, and it inspired her to help others.
It causes your brain to release the neurotransmitters of dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, which we know are the happy hormones, causes your heart rate to slow down, your breathing to slow down, and it gives you an overall sense of calm and peace.
Marcella's nonprofit has helped thousands, and that includes first responders. She is giving away 1,000 free bears in honor of George. Now, that's all the time we have today for Coronavirus The Rundown. We'll see you next time. I'm Chris Stewart. Thanks for joining us.